to another episode of Mental Health Awareness. We are joined here today on July 31st, 2023, of this Jaws Coffee Chat with Jennifer A. Whitaker, our lovely leader, and C-Snaps, our host today. We want to give a special thanks and shout out to a few groups for airing our programs on their platforms. That would be Lawrence Wingate of Wingate TV, Marcus Hart of Transform U Media, Zach Clayton of the PAC Channel, and Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel. We always appreciate their participation and support. So we would also appreciate your support by sharing, liking, and subscribing to any or all of our social media pages, groups, and YouTube channels, or wherever it is you found us, came across our show today. So no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and C-Snaps. Take it away, C-Snaps.
Well, welcome everybody. Today's episode, we are going to be covering kindness. And want to give thanks to, I read an article by Hopeful Panda this week, and I thought it was really good to incorporate this into our mental health discussion. So how well do you give kindness? Do you give it nicely? Do you misinterpret things? Are you on the defensive side? Is defense your initial reaction? So today we will be going over conversations versus offensive conversations versus defensive conversations, and covering grace. Do we give grace to people, especially when we feel the other person does not deserve it? So, any takers? How well do you give kindness, EJ or Jen?
So the reason I'm giggling over here is because I think for many of us that have mental illnesses, we are both based on how our mood is doing.
Yeah.
So you've seen when I get stressed and I got impatient with John on the affiliate page, remember? Because I was stressed and I just couldn't get it across to him based off what I thought I was seeing that you were able to more clearly see. So you could say in a case like that,
right?
stressed, I couldn't convey what I was certain I saw. And then there's the everyday me that that is always trying to help you, always trying to look out for EJ, look out for you, look out for Kurt and all kinds of other people. But it's just in the end, if we truly have a mental illness, there's some point that our episodes make us do what is not of our character. So that's why I think, regardless of what is a mental illness, many of us, whether it's us three or other people we know or the listeners, we could say we are both based on how well our day is going.
That is so true. So I got a new term this week in counseling. For me, it does go both ways because my new term this week was temporary amnesia. That's what we classified some of my episodes as. So with that being said, you just never know.
Oh my gosh, you really are my sister then.
You never know what a person is going through. Especially, when you have that type of situation happening, you just don't know.
I like to think that I err on the side of caution, so to speak, or err on the side of kindness, so to speak. I like to think that I am kind to others and receive kindness as well. And knowing that one of my strengths is that I'm an empath, and so I feel what other people are feeling more intensely. That I know that when I
that's
start,
a three-way shot. That's apparently true of all three of us. So I
Yeah.
raised her hand and I knew about myself. And then
Yeah.
you voiced yours. We're all empaths.
I know that when I'm more sinking more towards the depression or anxiety side, as opposed to the stress that you were talking about, Jen, when I'm more on the depressed side, I know that if I can make myself reach out and do something kind for somebody else, or just smile at someone else, or any of those little tiny things, it immediately comes back to me and lifts me up and makes me feel better
Yeah.
by trying to make someone else feel better.
Yeah.
It really is. There is actually some kind of psychology explanation of when you give to others, you're giving even more to yourself. And that's something I'm dealing with is most of y'all know that my dad passed away Wednesday. That was almost a week ago. And I've been having so much trouble and difficulties in my personal life, my mood and crying and stuff like that. But then as long as I am giving to the world, whether it's on this podcast, it's a meeting we had earlier with the Monday mission team. It's all these things that I'm doing and doing for others and helping others, even though in my case, I'm talking about the business aspect, that still it's something positive happening in life that's out of the kindness of helping these other people. Um, and for me, that's where I feel like I'm focusing on something so I don't drown in the negative that many of us know who have lost a parent, that losing that parent, especially when they're close to, is like water just circling, spiraling downward and sucking you in. Like that kind of deepness that we probably don't ever feel any other time in life.
Right.
But when I'm helping people, so I'm getting an uplift and an enjoyment, which is an act of kindness.
So true. Um, I can agree with that. Just giving uplifts me too. But I find, which that was going to be part two, which is the how well do you receive kindness? But we'll get there. Yeah. So the heart of an offensive person is love. It means putting others' needs above your own. And to prepare for this mentally, try to consider the other person's perspective before jumping in with your own. Because on our bad day,
what about considering their situation and not just their perspective? Like the other
right,
person, because what if they're having a hard time and that's why they're irritable or whatever, other sense of bad mood. And then if we don't consider that other person's experience, like their mood and how their day's going,
right,
so that, isn't that part of looking at the situation and having an idea of how can I help that person based on what is their situation and what can I offer?
right. So true. Yeah. Just I was thinking when I said perspective, I was thinking like just everything that that person is going through.
Even if we don't know what they're going through.
Right. Because like I know for me, a lot of times me and my sister bump heads, but I know that she has a lot of stuff on her plate. And so I try to give her grace, and try to look at it from her perspective when I can, because not all the time I can do that. But when I can, I try to say, okay, she's going through all of this, so let's try to not do this. And then jumping into not being a victim, because sometimes I know we can come off as either being the victim or playing the victim, and those are two different things. So being a victim is when don't, if you are in these situations, then get yourself out of these situations. If you're being abused verbally, or they're messing with your mental, or you're being abused physically, you need to get out of that situation. Anything that causes trauma or can be considered as a crime, you definitely need to get out of that situation.
And
And
sexually is another common one. Sexual victimization
yes,
or abuse. Another one to report to proper authority to get yourself out of.
right, definitely. And so being a victim is different from playing the victim. But the thing is that whether you're being the victim, then you still have to you have to heal your soul, heal your heart from going through that trauma. Now, playing the victim is when you're just doing it to gain attention, avoid responsibility, or to manipulate others. You don't want to do that either, because that just means you need some attention. And if you're looking for attention, then you need to ask yourself why.
So what I hear you saying is being a victim is two parts. It's an experience in life, which is when we go through suffering of someone doing some kind of crime to us, but beyond the incident of whatever crime on us, the act of being a victim is an attitude, which is where you carry on the, say, anger or the perspective that everyone's out to get me or something else that's magnified and not reality. That's an attitude you take on because that one person at that one or more times in life did something to you. And like I could say about mine, that I told you about my affair that happened in September of 2022.
Right.
I could still be victimizing myself and suffering of it, but I'm out of the actual situation that was months ago and almost a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example to the listeners of what Mayak was talking about. That's where you can stay in the situation, even though it's past, how you can, by attitude, stay in it, but not actually be
Yes.
suffering.
You're muted. Right, there you go.
Sorry. That's exactly what I was talking about. I put myself on mute because I was talking during her. But yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. Having that attitude of, and you can fall, and it can become a cycle to where, like you get into that cycle, after one abuse, after another, then you just have that mindset and you kind of was like, that's what causes depression. So if we can get it before it takes root in your heart, then we're better off recovering from that. And this also affects our kindness.
Well, I was going to say, before you go into this affects our kindness, this affects our self-love. Because I was reading I was in a Bible study. You know how we're doing the YouVersion stuff? There's one I'm doing on my own, aside from what Lady Kendra has us doing. And it was talking about victimization and turning to Christ to refocus our hearts on Him. To know that even if whoever did us wrong is still out of jail or whatever, why we have the fear, say paranoia or anxiety. On the other hand, it's because of just depression, because those are both types of fear, that whoever will come back and hurt us again, that we can still, through scripture and this particular Bible study we're doing, forgive ourselves and be healed from victimization through the Word of God and what that particular lesson is talking about, which says to go to Him for the love, go to God for the healing. And this kind of reminds me of what you say, Mayaka, about God will heal me, or God is healing me. So it's a bringing faith into our mental health. So even if somebody has different faith, but they bring it into their mental health to turn to that God to request healing and to request the focus on the God's love and His presence in the world while forgiving themselves of whatever situation that we often tend to think is our fault. And with the attitude that victimization that corporate crime causes, we tend to desire to put ourselves in another abusive situation, which is why I define it as an attitude.
That is so true. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Send me that Bible study. Um, what else? Okay, so take time, like she was saying, for self-love, self-compassion, and she always gets to the point before I do. Yes. And I believe we talked last week about self-love and self-compassion. And I think that we've covered self-care on more than one episode. So yes, check those out if you haven't already looked at those podcasts.
But I think we've touched different realms of self-love, because some had to do with like going for the massages and other things that's given us time off. But this has to do with our mental health state of self-care. That's what I was talking about. So it's the same topic, but in different perspectives, which is why I mentioned it on this show in addition to the last.
Right. No, it's no problem. I'm sure they don't mind, because a lot of what we find out is that mental health is really focused around self-care and self-love. That's really why we are going through mental problems. And one way to overcome our feelings is to ask, how are we feeling? Then ask what our thoughts are and what our beliefs are that trigger those feelings. And so I was watching church Sunday, and it talked about, he was telling us a story about this woman who he was trying to heal from. He didn't say what she was being healed from, but he did that. The woman's voice literally changed to a man's voice, and it said that, I don't want to come out of her, I want her mind. And so he kind of was saying that was a demon or something. And so it was crazy, because it's like, if he won her mind and that's what he's really going after, we need to guard our minds and our hearts. And the Bible says guard our hearts. And we need to also take care of our minds, because a lot of what's going on in today's world in society is that a lot of people are getting mental illnesses. And it's really unfortunate that that's happening, because we need to take care of our minds. And like we said, going back to that self-love and self-care. So yeah.
But on the topic of, like you say, a lot of what we go through now is in our minds. And that's true, because I was reading this magazine that's about the psychology and the different aspects of the brain neurologically. That's why we experience different types of anxiety. And it talks about how back in the day, as a caveman and all that other, before the humankind was civilized, that anxiety was a tool to put the body into fight or flight for the physical safety from a bear or some other dangerous animal. Compared to modern day, we don't need to actually respond that way, but our brains are still programmed to do it. When in most cases, modern day, if we believe we need to fight, the fight or flight, it's not really that we need to literally fight. It's more like we become defensive or verbally protective of ourselves in a situation where we're not comfortable, but we are not actually in danger. We're just maybe sad, or our feelings are hurt. And so that's one of those has to do with the reason we have those feelings, that has to do with the history of mankind. That's why we have to, in modern day, recognize that we don't need to actually fight. We need to, be accepting, okay, the realization, this is the situation, I'm thinking or feeling this certain way. But when I look around me, I actually see two other people talking to me. I hear pleasant attitudes, whatever it is, observing the different senses to get back in connection with the real situation of modern day that is not a need to actually guard yourself because you're not in actual danger.
That was good. Yeah. I have to say that I know for me, because I am very protective, like I will go into protective mode quick. And it's like, you're being mean to me. Go away.
Well, see, and I do too with my PTSD because, the PTSD says that we are put into the fight or flight mode. We either on guard or we run. That's what that whole thing is, which is where I'm saying how your condition and my condition are very similar because even though they have different terminology for our episodes, we still either want to be on guard of ourselves because we consider something danger when it's uncomfortable, or we go south with our mood of some kind of really bad sadness or low mood or whatever you'll call it. So it's got different terminology, but it's very much the same experience. I mean, maybe some differences you and I don't know, but in a general gist. That's where I see where we all three have different conditions, but yet we have very similar experiences in the world and perspectives of the world.
So true. And then don't take responsibility. Don't take your pain out on other people. If you've been through something, meet your needs. And when I say meet your needs, like she was saying, self-love and things like that. Take time for yourself. If you need to be alone, be alone. Don't just go and be with other people, and then be kind to yourself. Give yourself time to heal. Practice gratitude, and then build resilience. And resilience is just your ability to bounce back from any situation. So
I believe that developing relationships will also help them bounce back and other things. So, like, how sometimes I've told you, like, with my depression, it makes me want to just stay secluded and isolate myself. But there you go. See, another reason we're in common. I knew you were my sister somehow. But think about that. So that's what our emotions tell us and our mind tells us when we're in those moods. But it's actually better for us as far as getting ourselves out of that hole before we go too deep by being around other people. Whether that means like you and me making our friends, call each other virtually. It means having something like this where our job involves interacting and socializing with other people. But whether it's virtually in this post-pandemic world or it's in person, still that social and the support system, the act of interacting with different people of the support system, even with shy people, it helps keep them out of depression or fight it when they already are, versus isolation makes you go further down.
that is so true. Okay, now part 2 of our topic. How do we receive kindness? Do you receive kindness when someone gives you a gift or just a note? Or do your thoughts go to things like, what are they up to? What do they want? Did they do this to be nice? Or do I believe this? Or is this true? Are those your thoughts?
I don't
how well do you receive kindness?
I don't go into any of that, but I think tend to not reject it so much, but just get embarrassed by it or feel maybe the need to, I have to do the same back, or, guilty kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
yeah, I get that. So, I'll go ahead.
I don't think I reject it, but I definitely could receive it better.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you. No, like I don't, I wouldn't say I don't know how to receive. I'll take it as a thank you, but I don't really, I have like the negative thoughts going through my mind of, okay, I don't know about this. But there are times, I think it really depends on the person with me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that too. Yeah.
Because if it's like certain people, it's like, yeah, I'll accept this. And then other people, like if it's a stranger, I'm like, I really don't know you. I don't trust you. I'm not really sure you should be giving me this. Stuff like that. So,
Well, I was going to say, you don't seem to have a problem with me calling you.
right.
I guess it's great about the person in your case.
Yeah, so that's why I say it has to be the person. I'm usually accepting of gifts most of the time, which that kind of goes into people's love languages and what they like, as far as how to give them kindness. Because some person, to make their day, all you have to do is say a kind word. Other people, to make their day, you can give them a gift or something like that. I know certain situations for me, it was kind of like I don't know if you've heard of the I think it's called the High Performance Planner. I did that. I was working on that a while back. And there's a book that goes along with it called the High Performance Habits. And so on the daily pages, one of the questions that they ask you to do is how can you give a gift, a note, or appreciation to someone? And you're supposed to do this every day. And I know for me, I would just give it to certain people and then they're like, what are you doing? It was one of those things like, you don't have to do this for us,
Doesn't that
and it was more
say how scarce such small giving things are? Like, we don't get letters in the mail anymore, and we don't have pen pals anymore and other forms of writing to someone that we care about or that we want to get to know. Remember that when we were in school? And now my little sister's generation, all they do is send an email, and that's to us normal everyday language. Nothing exceptionally special about it. And if there's something different about it, it's called marketing. Like, but what we call actual communication and showing love in the pen pal way is basically extinct.
yeah, that is so true. So it's me that that's why I said go off of their love language, because you never know what you're going to be, how they're going to receive it. And so how well do you receive kindness? Because with them, it's like, with that example, it was they didn't know how to respond to that. And all it was challenge. And like we were discussing practicing gratitude. If you can practice gratitude, then you're more easier to receive. And I had preached on this a couple of Sundays ago about how given us everything, we just have to receive it. And the reason why he said that is because God gave his son to die on the cross for our sins. And all we have to do is just to receive the salvation. God is not asking us to do anything for his love. He's just asking us to receive and to accept the gift. Sorry, went out on a tangent.
I was going to say, with where you were talking about the different love languages, what seems so important when we're talking about this kindness and giving to others, being kind to others, is that we recognize when times are that we question, like the example of people giving us presents, especially we get it from a lot of different people at different points that aren't our birthday or home, right? Then it's understanding that could be their love language, even if it's a friendship. and that getting a present isn't necessarily fishy or suspicious versus, say, with you and I, Mayaka, it's a phone call. So is that a present or is that an act? But it's still something that you and I both welcome. And in some cases, I think being different distance from our friends, whoever they are, or our family, or whatever other social support system can determine which language we use. Because then again, you and I aren't local, so coming in person and getting me a hug wouldn't be an option, realistically. I mean, so I think even the understanding of what is a realistic love language to expect based on standards, like how far apart you live, to based off of how you know each other, like are you work colleagues or are you personal life friends? Like you wouldn't treat a colleague the same you would someone you knew in personal life. And so it's even looking at what's appropriate based on what area of life you know that person. I think it's even appropriate to look at like an example of my mom. So her love language is by giving presents. So she's always giving me practically anything and everything I ever want. You know, recently she got me a $500 bike because I wanted a bicycle. I mean, and with it, she got me the helmet and other stuff she requires me to wear if I'm on a bike. So, you know, that's her love language. But then I've struggled for years until I came to this point of understanding the different love languages that I thought since she didn't give me hugs, she didn't give me kisses, and certain other things that I questioned for many years, does she even love me? You know, if she loves me, why should she never give me a hug when I'm depressed? Why should she never give me a kiss when I'm depressed? Or, you know, there's certain things my stepmom does. Madre, you know who I'm talking about? The one I live with? Madre does that stuff. But then again, it's the understanding of love languages. So mom was showing her love by buying me the whatever that she could afford and I wanted. And I thought since she wasn't showing, I guess you say it's not empathy, but, you know, the touchy-feely love language stuff, since she wasn't doing that one, compassion, that's it, compassion, I took it as she didn't love me. And so that's even a one thing I think our listeners need to look at is when is it that we don't recognize what exists because it's a different love language than what we ourselves quote speak.
Right, that's so true. So I do, that brings me back to, yeah, the love languages. So there are different ways to receive love, and I think yours is physical touch, because you want the hugs and to show that they care. And so, but you can give, your giving language might not be your receiving language. You understand what I'm saying? Like your giving love
That's
language
very
might not
true
be.
because with different friends and family, my giving is time or service. Like look at the consulting I've done with you and what you're going through. So that was a time and service. But because we're best friends, there was no charge, and I gave you time and service. And then there's similar that I do for family or people that I find they're just in need of something that I offer, but they have no means to pay. And so even though it's typically stuff related to my work line and career, that's what I give, it's still time and service of whatever kind that's helping them in a way that I have no financial benefit. So, like you said, there's one language that's the way I accept love and want to receive it, and then there's the other that's how I give it.
Right, so true. So yeah, I do enjoy how we, I know for me, that's my same love language as you. I like the physical touch. I gotta get a hug every once in a while. But then my giving language is to give gifts. My receiving is the physical touch, but my giving is to give out gifts to other people. Don't ask me why. It's just a weird one.
It's all in the design of our brain. The chemicals called psychology.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that when we get past the looking at, if we can stay on offense with our moods and our kindness, and just don't take things to heart, and give God's grace to each situation. You know how I was saying, whether you want to give it or not, or you feel that they deserve it or not, just give the grace anyways. And I mean, a lot of times that's hard, because I know for me, I've been through some stuff, and you like, and I don't know how Jen feels, but even for her, like, would you want to give grace to that person who put you through that trauma? And it's like, you wouldn't want to, but it's definitely beneficial to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say it depends if it actually is where they know they received it versus just from a self-fulfillment. Like, for example, I could write a letter to the guy, hurt me in September, right? I can write a letter that states how I feel, and maybe even asking God to forgive him or something, or God to heal me of the pressure and depression, suffering that it brought on me. That goes back to the victim versus victimization thing. But I could also shred that thing and it doesn't actually go to him. So in that case, I would have made myself better by writing him a letter. But technically, he had no benefit, only I was able to close that wounded door and open up a new door of life.
Yes, so true. That kind of reminds me of the grief recovery class that I took, and how when you go through grief, you can come out healed just by taking the steps that you need to take. And I highly suggest that, either if you never heard of grief recovery and you're going through a lot of hurt, pain, or trauma, to try it out and either take the class or read the book, because the book is a step-by-step guide. Do you remember the name of the book?
I do not, but we can carry on to the next episode and mention it next week, because next week I'll be at my house where I have the book, and I could actually even at that point show the book on the screen. So let's just let listeners know that they'll know all this on what's that, August 7th? What's next Monday? That's the date we're going to tell them what the book's called for grief recovery.
Yeah, it's actually called the Grief Recovery Handbook. I just looked it up, but definitely we can we can show it to them next week. That way they'll know.
Did August 7th just suddenly happen in a second?
Yeah. We can show them what happened. We can show them what the book looks like, because I'm all about healing the broken heart and recovering. And like I said, they can take a class on it or everything. My bad.
That's why we love the humor when we three get together. I mean, look at us just, EJ, you and I are laughing. Like, my youngest sister is for a loop. Oh, suddenly it's August 7th. I said this for fun. I mentioned it, and she mentions it.
Yeah, I took you there. My bad. Yeah. Okay. So, quick wrap up. So today we were talking about kindness and how to give and receive kindness to other people, and how we play a role in the relationships that we create with other people through the way we act based off of how kind we are to others. Like, for when we're giving kindness, do we give kindness to others to and make it in a loving way without being on the defense. Like somebody can say something and, well, did you add something to dinner? And really what they meant was they just wanted to know, was this enough, versus versus you took it as something negative, which was I could have done better. And that's really not the case. So watch our thoughts. I talk about that a lot. Watch your thoughts and how you think about things, because it can affect your mood and everything else. And then how do we receive kindness from the other end? Are we receiving it? Are we accepting that person's love language? Their love language might not be the language you need to receive, but they're still trying to show love in the way that you can, in the way that they know how to give it. And so just trying to be receptive to other people's love language. And then if you're just in a negative situation, get out of it. So yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're about wrapped up there. Any special announcements or anything anyone has to add before we sign off? Yeah, Jennifer.
Yes. I myself, Jennifer A. Whitaker, and Kurt Roskoff will be working with Monday Mission Podcast to try to get it back live, get it back produced. We're right now in the planning stage and building a team of veterans that want to be part of the podcast. And we're looking for those of you who are veterans or were impacted by veterans in some way or another that like being on podcasts to sign up on, let's see, Kurt, do you know what was that link we got earlier?
I'm not sure if he's available and listening.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking to myself. Okay, let me see if anybody sent this to me.
Well, while she's looking that up, we just want to say thanks to everybody for listening today, whether it's live or one of our recordings. Our next episode of the Mental Health Awareness is aired every Monday at 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern. So our next episode will be August 7th. And did you find it, Jennifer?
I was going to say what they could do is email either Kurt at projectdiehard.org, and that's Kurt, Kurt, at projectdiehard.org, or to email Jen, JENN, .ace, that's ACE, my MY, Course, COURSE, at gmail.com, with Project Die Hard and or Monday Mission in the subject line. And there we will send you the proper information to fill out to see if you'd be a great regular guest speaker or participant in the show. For those of you who don't like to be on podcasts, we invite you to like or subscribe to Jaws Coffee Chat, where it will be aired once it is created, at least as a starting point, until Project Die Hard has their own podcast channels. And if you are supporting Project Die Hard, please subscribe to Jaws Coffee Chat, follow Jaws Coffee Chat on all of our social medias, because those, as well as the ones for World of Ability, are where you will see posts to keep you updated on the relaunch of Monday Mission for Veterans.
Excellent. Okay, everybody. Well, be sure to subscribe to our channel or pages where you found us. Check out our website to find out more about this show and other shows that we have. That website is Books and More by JenniferAWhitaker.com. So again, until next time, August 7th, we wish everybody a productive and enjoyable week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Recording